Hello everyone. I just wanted to make a video today about Plato's The Republic, because I feel like there's this one particular part of the book that's very popular and also pretty misunderstood, or like not represented very accurately. So if you're interested in like, I don't know, the truth and how there might be a discrepancy between the actual thing and what influences and the like tend to lead us to think about it, then you may be interested in this video. So I think most people, if you've been reading some like influencers or these kind of YouTube people, have probably heard of the Allegory of the cave, right? It's like usually they reference it with like about ignorance of common people and how they don't want to be enlightened and stuff. So you got like people. There's a cave here, and okay, there's like so this is the interior of a cave. Okay, so um, and there's like light. There's like light coming from here, like this. Okay, and there's a bunch of people in this cave, and they've never seen the light before, so they exist kind of down here. Draw some. Okay, so there's like people here. They've never seen the light before, and they've just existed in this darkness the whole time. And the popular story is that a person walks out of the cave. So somehow one of these guys, uh, he goes up out there and he sees the world for the first time, and then he comes back, and he's like, "Hey, this is the this is the enlightened guy." So he comes back and he's like, "Hey people, there's this there's a whole world out there that none of you people know of." And they're like, this guy's making a bit of an idiot out of us, right? So they start talking amongst themselves. And then they're like, this guy is a heretic, he's a whatever, right? So they look they get bloodthirsty, and then they kill him. So they just cut his head off or whatever. He's he's dead now. So it's like, the common people don't want to, but I mean, this is like maybe 10% of the kind of importance, and it's not even the point of the entire allegory. This representation is very simple, but is very wrong. It's not actually what happens. So, I mean, let's go over a couple earlier concepts in the book, just very briefly, and then I will explain to you um, what this thing is really about. Okay, so that's wrong. Make a new frame and delete that frame. So there are a couple ideas. How do I make a text box here? Text box anywhere. This one, T. Okay. So this one. Okay, make it black. There are three ideas I want to help you understand before I can like explain, like really get into it properly so you understand it. So the first idea, there are a couple ideas introduced into the book that this story kind of needs and elaborates from. So just change the canvas size real quick. Canvas size, let's make it 256. Okay. So this is, oops. Just redo this text box. So can I delete that? The theory of forms is the first kind of idea that this draws upon. So what is the theory of forms? Theory of forms, I'll explain it to you in a sec. So what does theory of forms mean? It's basically a kind of epistemological idea, which in basic terms means a theory of knowledge. Okay, so it's very similar to like object-oriented programming, actually. Um, basically, so first thing we can do to understand it is to draw a division between the world of reason and the actual physical world. Okay, so we have a lot of like this, like 8. World of reason, and then the physical. How bad is this? Can't see anything. Empirical world. Okay. Um, and the idea is that the true form of something, an object that you see in the physical world, actually exists in a more intellectual, abstract sense in the world of reason. So any object that you see here in the physical world actually has a corresponding form. Okay, so for example, like a bowl, the form of a bowl exists like abstractly, right? And then this form, this like one singular unchanging form, uh, like kind of instantiates all these objects in the physical world, right? So all of these objects that you see, which are subject to change, like subject to being broken and, you know, altered and all of this stuff, they derive their original form from this more unchanging idea which exists in the world of reason. Okay, um, so that's basically what the theory of forms means. I mean, I don't. It's like, so like all ants of a particular kind of like species inherit their you know, physical embodiment from, you know, this one ant, right? That's basically what the true form is. Okay, it's basically all you need to know. So what's the second thing? Second thing, kind of that like you need reason to kind of get to these forms. Okay, so this is like what Socrates is talking about with uh, like studies like mathematics and stuff, is that they begin with hypotheses and they reason their way into these unchanging things like these forms. Second thing that's kind of relevant to the understanding the Allegory of Cave is the, oh man, it's bad. I think it needs to be 9. It needs to be a multiple of 9 to actually work. Is the divided line analogy. Okay, so the divided line analogy, make a new frame for that. New frame, delete. Is another kind of epistemology, and basically divides the kind of knowledge that people can have into certain like categories. Okay, so you imagine you got a line here. This is the line. Yep. And you, first thing you do is divide it into 2 segments. So you can think of this line as like representing all knowledge, I guess. You divide it into 2 segments, one is longer, one is shorter. Okay, so let's make this the longer, this is shorter. And then you divide the same line into equal proportions that we just did. So one shorter and one longer. Okay, one shorter and one longer. So this is shorter, this is longer. Okay, and these are going to represent the kinds of knowledge that we have. So there's 2 divisions. Let's see, I'll make a circle and I will make it white. So this is one realm, okay, and this is another realm. And this kind of corresponds to a little bit to what we were talking about, the theory of forms earlier. So this is going to be, can I make it 9 to make it work? 9, okay, T. This is going to be the physical, it does work, yes. Empirical world, okay. And this is going to be the intellectual reasoning world, okay. Like higher faculty stuff. Okay, and this is sense. Belonging. Oops. Not belonging, what? Becoming. Okay. And we have two kind of forms of gaining knowledge in these worlds, okay? So this is draw some lines here. Got a line coming there, 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 there. So the smaller kind of knowledge here, this is images, okay? So this kind of knowledge here, this one, this is like shadows. So go shadows and like reflections and everything that is like an image of an object but not the actual object, okay? So these are all like pseudo forms, and they don't really give you enough information to tell you what an object really is. Whereas these are like, okay, this other line here, this bigger line, this one is more to do with true objects. So that would be like an animal or a sphere or like a plate, whatever. Just something you see in the physical world, okay? Then in the intellectual or reasoning world, we again have different kinds of knowledge. So this is going to be like, so the smaller line here, this kind of knowledge you can have in the reasoning world, this is like an image of reason. So this is a hypothesis. Oops, can I move you? Yeah. Hypothesis. So this part of knowledge is like, it's not first principles, right? It's things that we kind of conjecture, and things we're not entirely sure of. It's not pure reason, right? Conjecture, inference, all this kind of stuff. Okay, and we put all these things together and construct arguments, and eventually we arrive here, which is the highest form of knowledge that they've classified in this little model. So this is first principle or pure reason, okay? And these are like the original forms, like all this kind of stuff. And it's also, what do we call it? Unchanging, okay? So these are like eternal kind of things that we can arrive at through inference and conjecture and hypothesis and all this stuff. So this is the divided line analogy, basically, okay? So we kind of ascend from what is an image and what is not truly real and only temporary. Like this is a temporary, temporal, changing world of becoming, ephemeral, all this stuff, right? And we ascend to the realm of reason, which is the unchanging world, things that always are, always will be, first principle, true reality, right? They also call this specific kind of knowledge here, this is called faith. So this is just like taking things, looks like faith, but it's faith. Taking things by their appearances, okay, before moving into the intellectual realm. And this is the basis for what we actually see in the Allegory of the Cave, okay? So we go back here, and we go Allegory of the Cave, okay? It's 18. Allegory of the Cave, okay. So how does this work here? So I'll make a new one. So what actually happens in the Allegory of the Cave, right? Okay, so can I just fill this out black? Maybe not black, maybe like gray, semi-transparent gray color. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so here we are. Here's the sun. So what actually happens in the Allegory of the Cave? Need to construct a wall. rectangle. Okay. Here? Yeah, and I'll shrink this. Shrink. And we'll have a fire as well somewhere. Need a fire. So this draw tool. I don't know, this is a pretty weird fire to me. Some logs as well. Alright. Just letting my inner artist kind of shine here. Whatever kind of fire that is, don't judge, okay? Some stuff here. It's yellow at the bottom right, and some embers, and okay, I'm getting too artistic now. Okay, so there's a fire at one side of a cave, and there's people sitting here. Okay, so there's a bunch of people in the cave. There's still a light source, okay, that they are not aware of, so that is consistent with what we typically know. But there's a bunch of people sitting in the cave, and their necks are chained. Okay, pretty brutal, but they've all got chains around their necks, so they cannot turn their heads because their necks are chained, right? So if I draw a little thing here, I don't know what their necks are chained to, but they're chained to something. Okay. So the necks are all chained. They cannot really move their heads. They're completely oblivious to this light source here. And they've been living their entire lives in this kind of semi-darkness, okay? On one side of the cave, there is a fire here, okay? And there's a wall. There's a path between these people, okay? So there's a path between these people and the, am I drawing here? There's a path that goes, say, like across here, okay? And I think the wall is actually a bit higher. Yeah. And there are people who walk along this path to the fire, and they carry objects. So let's see, person here, person here, person here, and they carry, I don't know, vessels, statues, various kinds of things. Okay, like this. And so let me just draw a little statue here or whatever thing this is. So yeah, I don't know. Could be a statue of like a bird or something, I don't know. And the fire projects the images of the things that they're holding. So probably they would be holding the objects above their heads, right? So it could project not their bodies, but the thing. So maybe he has an object like here, okay? And his arms are like here. He's carrying the thing. And the light projects the shadow of all the objects onto the wall, okay? So, what can we draw here? I don't know. This one has like the shadow of like a bee or something. I don't know. Whatever, man. Like, so the shadow is projected, okay, by the fire onto the wall, and these people, they can observe all the shadows, okay, on the wall, and this is what they take to be reality, okay? So all these images of the objects that they see, this is their reality, and they play games. So they make names for these objects that they see projected onto the wall, and they try to like identify what is this object, right? You know, what is this thing that I'm seeing? And this is what they take to be knowledge, okay? Which isn't really knowledge, you know. So they make up all names for these kinds of things that they're seeing projected onto the wall. And yeah, that's the world they live in, that's the reality. So if we go back to the divided line analogy, right? This is the shadows, reflections, and images. So this is, you know, it's a metaphor, right? It's an allegory. It's not a... So this is the first stage of knowledge. That these people really like unenlightened state, right? And so by force, say one of these guys is his chain is cut, right? So we cut a razor. Okay, whatever. Maybe I will have to draw with this color then. So his chain is cut off, right? Okay. So he's not bound to this anymore, and he's taken out. He's abducted, right? Uh, he's abducted out of a cave towards the light here. So he has to say bye bye, and then in this world he comes to see a lot of things, but it's really bright, right? It's the first thing. Okay, so this new world he's in is really bright. It's like blindingly bright. He cannot see anything because he's just come out of the pit of ignorance, right? Okay, so the pit was like here, and our little person here, he's like can't see anything. Okay, so he's like on his knees. I don't even know how to draw that. Okay, so he's like, yeah, he's like on his knees. He can't really see anything because there's the sun here, the sun of reason. Okay, is so bright, but there are like forms here, and they have proper color and everything. So he's gonna get to know this world sooner or later, but just right now, he cannot really see very much of anything. Okay. But the first things that he can make out, okay, are going to be shadows, okay. So it's not a very good shadow. It's more like a pole. Okay, so first things he can make out are shadows and also images, okay, of like reflection in the water, okay. So maybe if I go like here, okay. So he can make out shadows, he can make out reflections at first, which are like, if we go here, because he's been abducted into the realm of reason now, and he's like learning. So this is like the hypothetical realm, right? The shadows and the images of this world. This is like hypotheses. So he can see a little bit of things at first, but as he keeps learning and growing, eventually he's going to acclimatize, his eyes are going to adjust, and he's going to be able to see the true forms, like the trees. And finally, the sun of reason, right? This is the last thing that he's going to be able to perceive because it's the brightest thing in this new world that he lives in, okay? And this whole kind of analogy is really about the process of education that goes on in the Republic, which is the main thing that Socrates is constructing in this book. And these are the ruling class. This is the kind of process that the ruling class is going to be subjugated to through education. Okay. So once they finally see the light of reason, right, the rulers of this republic are going to send them back down into the hole. They're going to send them back down into the cave. They're not going to allow them to exist kind of permanently in this Elysium paradise place. That's, not got any of this like delusion and stuff in it. They have to go back down to the world of men. So they're going to be forced back down into this cave here. And it's just like a passing point that Socrates makes, really. It's like when our enlightened person like appears back in this cave, and all these people, they've never known anything else. This is their reality, right? And having like no recognition or no real value attached to what's out there in this outside of the hole here. Sorry. They're not going to like what the new guy has to say because it's in conflict with these, the epistemology or like the values that they have, right? So, it's just a comment that Socrates makes in passing. Like, yeah, they're probably going to kill him, right? If he comes back down to, enlighten them. And And also another interesting point that they kind of make is that when he does come back down here, um, from this world, he goes back down to the hole. He's actually not going to be able to see anything at all, right? Because it's just so dark that his eyes cannot see. So it's not going to look like this anymore to him, really. It's more going to look like this, okay? Or not that much, but it's going to look like this, right? Like he can hardly make out anything. And because he can hardly make out anything at all, these people are going to look at him like he's a stupid, you know, because he can't even make out this stuff on the wall, right? Which is what they're so good at. He can't even do that. So they're going to think of him as like a really kind of ignorant person who doesn't know anything, doesn't know squat about nothing, right? We'll just make this guy the enlightened guy, right? So we can change him now. Uh, he's white now, okay. But he's not going to be able to understand anything here, and so, but eventually, right? Eventually, he's going to reclimatize, and he's going to have both knowledge of this outside world and also this kind of world, and he's going to become a master of this world and be able to kind of rule the men even down here. Which is kind of the basic idea of the Allegory of the Cave. So it's really about like epistemology and education. Okay, it's it's really not this simple of like, you know, smart people get lynched by. I mean, that is like a really small part of it. It's like 10% of it. But you know, it's not about ignorant people and their tendency to lynch people who are smarter than them or whatever. Okay, so it's more about you know, leadership, education, and epistemology, like how you go from kind of seeing the shadows of what is to educating yourself through reason, and things become a lot clearer and you can see the true form of things. So yeah, you know, obviously I haven't gone through all the details or elaborated every idea perfectly here, but I hope I've given you like a good enough picture of what this kind of allegory is actually about. Um, and you know, so now that you don't have this kind of image of what the allegory of the cave is, right? Now you have a bit of a clear understanding, I hope. Um, so yeah. Anyway, hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed my cool pictures. Okay, thanks. Bye.